And good evening, everybody. I am John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives, and we're also broadcasting on McDuff Lives 2 tonight as we transition back to McDuff Lives. After our second strike finally expired, now we're down to one, so we're going to risk it with the big channel at McDuff Lives. Anyway, we're on both channels tonight with the great Garland Nixon. Good evening, Garland.
Hey, good evening, John.
Thank you so much for making time for us. You're one of the busiest guys I know, and it's a privilege to have you here at all. But really, it's also just great to be able to see what's on your radar screen as opposed to what I've been looking at, what other people are looking at. I notice on Twitter you've been very active. You've done some shows at on your YouTube, but other than that, you've been broadcasting on WPFW and then also the Los Angeles. Tell us a little bit about what your typical week's been like for you last week, for instance.
Okay, well, I do a show. Last week was busy, so I do a show Monday through Friday. It's 105.5 FM. It's Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C., but that broadcast worldwide. So I do that daily. It runs from 6 to 8 p.m. So from 1 to 3:20, I record that. Mondays I do a show on KPFK in Los Angeles. So after I get finished that show, recording that show on K Street, I hustle up the street to the studio of WPFW and connect up to Los Angeles, and I do an hour show there. Now, last week I did a show Tuesday night. I don't even remember who. I did the Katie Halper show one night on YouTube. Another show I did with the Sabby Sabs, and they wanted me to talk about the defund the police stuff. And, that was interesting because, I said I agree with a lot of their policies, but I just think it's the worst, catchphrase that I've ever heard in my life. And then, of course, Fridays, I do my WPFW show. From 6 to 7 p.m. So it was an interesting week. Really, the most interesting of all of the things I did, I think, was Katie Halper was fun talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. But then the whole defund the police thing, that was very, very, it was fun because it was a little, I don't want to say argumentative, but I was just arguing that the literal meaning of defund the police is anarchist. That's the rhetoric of anarchy. No police, no government, no nothing. And they were like, well, that's not what we mean. What we actually mean. And I'm like, well, if that ain't what you mean, that ain't what you need to say. So that was a lot of fun. Katie Halper talking about Ghislaine Maxwell was interesting because we talked about that from the perspective of reality. It is the Epstein operation was an intelligence operation, and Ghislaine Maxwell's connections, all of her family connections are to the Mossad. It's clear what was going on here, but we talk about it as though it's some kind of an actual pedophile ring as opposed to a state-sponsored intelligence blackmail operation that used pedophilia, which in a way, doesn't that make it worse? But at any rate, so that's what my week was about.
It is worse. It's bad. It's bad enough, and then it gets worse, and that's where most people disconnect, I think. But you can handle one level of worse, but then you get to and you pile another one, and you say, well, there's pedophilia. Well, that's awful. I mean, I don't even want to think about that, right?
Right.
And then you say, and then it's government sponsored,
Right.
and you go like, no, no.
Yeah.
Sayonara, I'm out of here.
Exactly. It's madness.
Cognitive dissonance. It doesn't compute that those things could happen in my world, in my universe, and where I grew up, and in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and this stuff is going on here. Well, I'm afraid it is, guys. It really is going on here, and it's worse than we can imagine. And just talking about it doesn't fix it, but when you point to the fact that, yes, this is an intelligence operation, this is one of the ways that intelligence operations have worked for a long, long time. And we're doing it. That's the hard part. We're doing it. Our CIA, the people that they contract with, they're the Five Eyes, however many eyes they got now. I think it was 9 eyes or 13 eyes, and it was 9 eyes in the James Bond movie, but it's Five Eyes as far as I know. But it's really is the theme of that movie was that the intelligence agencies are taking over the world and create the new world order is being put in place by this combination of very, very powerful and very, very ruthless intelligence agencies. Any comment on that?
Well, they're not far from the truth on that one. You know, the interesting thing for those who don't know, and here's another little twist, or another reason not to trust Tony Blinken. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was named Robert Maxwell. He had a book written about him. The name of the book was Robert Maxwell, Israeli Super Spy. He was known as a spy for Israel. There was no, that was no secret. Ultimately, when he died, his body was brought to Israel by plane, and the prime minister met his body, and he was given an honorary burial as a state hero. And here's something that's interesting. He, as many spies do, he met an untimely death, fell off of his boat and drowned, right? His giant yacht and drowned. But here's an interesting fact. Robert Maxwell, Israeli super spy, had a lawyer. His lawyer's name was Samuel Pisar. Samuel Pisar's stepson is named Antony Blinken. Antony Blinken's stepfather was Robert Maxwell, super spy's lawyer. Now, if he was the lawyer of an Israeli spy, I'm kind of guessing you can be about 99% sure that he was an Israeli spy. Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, worked with Israel intelligence. Her sister worked with I think the name of one of her tech firms was called Comtech. They brought her in as the president of a firm. At one point, that particular firm went IPO, it went public, and apparently it wasn't doing well, and Bill Gates bailed it out for like $300 million or something crazy. So, the connections go on and on and on. I saw them interviewing Bill Gates, and he was talking about, yes, when I met Epstein, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you met Epstein, you bailed Ghislaine Maxwell's sister out for either tens or hundreds of millions of dollars prior to all of that. So, as we see, those names are all entangled together. But there's no way that Ghislaine Maxwell's father was an Israeli spy. Her sisters are Israeli. I mean, if she's not Israeli intelligence, she'd be the only one who's not. And let's not forget, when Alex Acosta, who worked in the Donald Trump administration, he was asked, when he was in Florida, Epstein was found guilty and basically given nothing. He was basically let go. And Alex Acosta said, I didn't want to sign off on this. And when they brought this for me to sign off, they told me, leave it alone. He's owned by intelligence. Epstein was owned by intelligence. Well, it all makes sense. And let's face it, if they will use pedophilia, if they will sexually abuse children, then there is nothing that these people won't do. And that's the reality we're looking at. And I add this, and check this out. Yeah, I don't know if you already didn't know this or not. When Epstein was put in jail, he was put in jail with a guy named Taglioni. I think it's Frank Taglioni, right? He was pretty much a drug land hitman, right? He was in jail for killing 4 people in a drug land slaying, right? Think about this. This is the guy, Epstein. They're putting him in maximum security. They're supposed to be looking out for him, blah, blah, blah. They put him in jail with a hitman. And shockingly, he met an untimely demise. Might I add, the hitman's lawyer is the same lawyer that Ghislaine Maxwell has right now. The prosecutor, same prosecutor that Ghislaine Maxwell has right now. The hitman who was in jail with Epstein. So my thing is this is not a trial. This is something to put out, a public spectacle for people to talk about, for people to pretend as though it's a trial. And then afterwards they move on and do what they may say. She ain't going to jail. I don't believe any of this. And I just think it's a total fraud, and it's obvious that it is an intelligence operation, and that tells you about the media. If I can figure out it's an intelligence operation, then the media clearly knows it is, and they are complicit in hiding both an intelligence operation and a pedophilia ring. That's all in one.
Yes, they are. They absolutely are. And thank you for pointing it out. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. Our media, all of them, they're all locked up. I was watching someone the other day was demonstrating that it's either Vanguard or BlackRock.
Hmm.
If any big corporation, and especially the media, is
Hmm.
all funneled into those two names, and then those two are the major shareholders of each other.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
I think there's Vanguard, BlackRock, and one more. Like three of these
yeah,
private equity corporations own like 80 or 90. They own the majority and like 80 or 90% of everything on the on Wall Street. So all of the major corporations. So in reality, I used to always joke and say, yeah, one of these days there'll be one corporation. It's called Unicorp. Yeah, well, that's kind of where we are now in reality.
it's kind of, yeah, it is. And like you have Sheets and Wawa. They appear to be competing, but they've actually divided up the territory almost, with a red line on a map saying you can have this side of the highway and you can have this side of the highway. I think they do the same thing with Lowe's and Home Depot. There's so many cases where they look like they're competing, but the prices are about the same, and you get the same, quality of stuff. It works, but it's not that great. And But where's the competition? I don't see it. It all is starting to look like one big monopoly in which we're the ones that get screwed because everything our money just look at the prices. Have you noticed? I mean, I think everybody's noticed prices going up.
It's interesting you say that, because it gets into something that what you're saying is something very important, and that is, what kind of economy do we have? Right? Is it capitalism? Sure ain't that. Is it socialism, communism? It sure ain't that. What we have now is something that it's worse than anything that we could think of, and it's not anything that we have a label. Let me give you an example. When you talk about a company, right? Because I used to work for this company, and they did well, and they were started by some people, like 4 or 5 guys started it. It was a company that sold everything from security systems to camera systems for major companies, or everything from, you could buy a security system for your home, to if you had a big corporation and you wanted, like, they put up all of the cameras in Baltimore City for their camera stuff, right? So you could get whatever you wanted. It was doing well. What happens? One of these bigger companies, like Vanguard type, called Apollo Holdings, came in and bought it. They bought that. They bought ADT. They bought a bunch of them, right? And what you end up with this, there used to be a corporation, and this corporation made Campbell soup, as a matter, right? So they had made soup. So what was the value of this corporation? Could they make good soup? Could they sell the soup? X amount of soup. That's what the corporation was. And so that was like, they'd come up with new kinds of soups, and it was about an actual product that hit the market. And then when it made money, and when they came up with a new product, the value of the company would go up. People would buy more stocks. Oh boy, my stock is up because of the value of the company, right? But now what happens? Now Apollo, Vanguard, BlackRock, whoever, they come in and they buy this company, and they split it. And then they take one half of the company, and they'll take a big loan out against that. And they'll take the other side of the company, and or they'll buy two companies. They'll take a loan of a max loan against one of the companies for all of the money that company can get, and they'll pocket that. They'll keep that. They'll take the other company, that'll pay off the loan for this company. Neither of those companies are in business to make money. This is a financial transaction. They bought this company so they could take out a giant loan with this company, so they could gut this company. So they're playing these games with this company. They could care less about the products it makes, the services. This is now juggling capital. These companies, then can I put these companies together, and can I sell them to somebody else, even though they're now a shell of what it once was, to make more money? So if you're a customer, your service goes down, the products go down, everything goes down. They change the customer service where you call in, that goes to India, China, wherever, who the hell cares, right? So where we used to have corporations that created products and service, those corporations are now purchased by one of these gigantic financial holding companies. And those corporations, why are the products crap? Because they don't care. They're just using that company to roll it over and make more money. So the idea in so-called capitalism, as we once understood it, is a company makes money, takes this profit, does research and development, creates a new product, makes more money from the more product, creates new services, branches out. That's gone. That company is now just a shell that's bought by this big company to be flipped, to take loans out again. Right? And meanwhile, what do? If the company, God forbid, does actually turn a profit, do they put that company money back in that company to expand benefits for the people, for the employees? Nope. To research and develop and come up with a new product? Nope. If that company takes money, it happens to make a profit, they take that profit and buy their own stocks, so that they can inflate the price of the stocks. So now they're worth more money, and they can sell the stocks as they turn the company into a heap of ashes. So reality, all of the things that used to be make up what we called capitalism are gone. Capitalism implies at least an industrial base where you make goods and services. We now have a financialized economy where all of these companies are no longer individual companies. They're bought by Vanguard or BlackRock or whoever and simply used as a financial tool to make more. They're disconnected from the market. So the market does not reflect whether this company's making money or not. It just reflects whether or not the people who own it can buy more stocks, inflate the stock prices, and get a higher stock prices. So what do we have now? We've got a financialized monster that just only gives money to these big investment firms and does everything it can and just sucks like a vacuum cleaner. This so-called economy that we have just sucks all the money up from the bottom and moves it to the top. And the companies, one last thing I'll say, companies used to work off of a profit. Now they don't. They work off of two things: debt, because they make these borrow all this money so they can put off in their pockets. And when they go bad, they go to the government. The Fed prints money and bails them out. So what do corporations live off of now? Number one, debt. Number two, an IV drip of bailout money from the Fed. So what is that? That ain't nothing even resembling, that does not even resemble the original idea of capitalism. It's some kind of a financialized whatever welfare system from the Fed for the super rich oligarchs.
And you can't resist it either. That's the sad thing is, you know, when you were talking, I was thinking about a local hardware store called Hungerford's, and one of the old families down here in Southern Maryland, the Hungerfords, and they had a hardware store up in Oxon Hill, in old Oxon Hill, and then they branched out down a little bit towards Fort Washington. At the top of Fort Washington Road, they had one for a while, and then they had it in Accokeek, and then down all the way down here to Newburgh. And these Hungerfords were in. It's like a family business, and I remember going in there and seeing the people, knowing them by name, Sam, and Tommy, and that kind of a business, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked in the 50s. It worked in the 60s. But when we started with this, what's the law that changed where investment banking could come into the
GlassSteagall.
The GlassSteagall.
But keep in mind, the GlassSteagall was the final thing they did. Clinton and the both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans in the 90s, had been bit by bit unraveling all of the legislation. Was the banking legislation that was put in by Roosevelt, by FDR after like 1930, because everything fell apart, and they put some banking regulations in to make sure it didn't happen again, and it worked. Until Clinton and his crew got rid of them in the 1990s, and we went right back to the 1920s. As soon as they got rid of GlassSteagall and all that kind of stuff, what happened? We went right back into Crash City.
Because and not only, the speculators of old, the robber baron capital, but also they let the drug laundered money come in. All of that comes in under Clinton. And when you have HSBC, James Comey,
Yep.
when you have an HSBC there that's basically laundering money for the CIA and for the mafia and for anybody else that needs their cash cleaned up, um, there's no way to keep it out of the legitimate banking business, so that the whole banking business gets polluted with not only with people, that have so much money, they have money to burn, and they're going to, take. I think I'll buy all the, so and so stores up. I'll buy up all the Wawas today, because I'm so rich. Not only those people, but also the organized crime, the and this and the CIA, and the way that they run their dark money through the system. It's all part of our system now. So there's no way that we can just kind of flush out the speculators, because we've also got some really bad dudes to deal with in terms of mafia and people that just don't want to have their cash cow killed. They like the way it is, so they're going to do everything they can to refinance. Right now they're trying to put this Green New Deal together for like $30 trillion over the next 30 years. And if they can do it, then, the party keeps going. If I hope that we can stop them. Speaking of stopping, the one thing I wanted to ask you about tonight is something that troubles me the
Oh,
most.
1 second. Sorry, my earpiece
Yeah.
just dropped out. Okay, I'm back. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about the one thing that troubles me the most this weekend, and that is the lack of resistance to what can only be called a totalitarian lockdowns in Australia, in Austria, in coming soon to Germany, coming soon to Britain, lots of places. And we're not immune from that over here in the States. But I think, if you are a person that believes in human rights, and you see people taken out of their homes, tossed into vans and put into a concentration camp in Australia, people that didn't even test positive they didn't even have the COVID, but they wouldn't accept the V thing, and so they got locked up. And now they're taken out of their homes, and they're in these little trailer type things with chain link fences all around them and guards. My God, this is unacceptable. It's the nicest way I can put it. Uh, what what's going on? How are they getting away with this? Why aren't people just screaming bloody murder? You can't do that. This is 19, this is the Holocaust, starting again, with a different group. It's apartheid. eh, I'm sorry, but I can't call it anything else. But it's totalitarianism, and it's combined with what you're talking about with the corporations. It's fascism, you know. And there's another word that starts with an N that I would like to call it. I won't go that far tonight, but damn it, this has got to stop.
It's interesting. It's a term that Chris Hedges has been using for years, and the term is inverted totalitarianism, right? And that is where rather than have like a charismatic, strong leader, the old autocratic leader, rather than have that, you have a totalitarianism, whereas you have these like corporate oligarchs and corporations and their owners and their corporate leaders, right? Where they are the effect of the Fuhrer, right? But rather than directly Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Koch brothers or whoever the billionaires, George Soros, you name it, right? Rather than directly give the orders, they do it through their puppets. And so what appears, and I think a lot of people are recognizing this, what appears to be political parties, what appears to be the heads of political parties, et cetera, are not. They're just conduits through which these powerful people work through. So they enact their policies. You know, we talk about Joe Biden and people like, oh, you know, Joe Biden's terrible and blah, 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 blah. Well, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But in reality, Joe Biden ain't running things. And right now, the people who run things, I've been reading all this stuff about Kamala Harris, and they're getting scared that Kamala Harris is a problem. You know what? You'll start seeing all the articles about terrorists. They'll replace her. They don't care. The parts are interchangeable for those people. So what we're in is we're in a circumstance where, sadly, Americans still think that the parties are corrigible. You know, that some kind of way there's some person that is going to come in and fix it. They put it, but you see what they've done to JFK. If somebody came in here and honestly said, well, this is unfair, let's look out for the little guy, they'd throw him off the White House roof before his first day in office. So our government has been taken over by some nefarious entities. And, you know, I used to think that the people would be like New World Order, one government. And I used to like, those people are crazy conspiracy theorists. Oh my God, these people are mad. Well, they weren't crazy conspiracy theorists, nor were they mad, because that's what we're really dealing with now. I mean, look at the EU. They're talking about a European army. And here's the thing. Why do they want a European army? Because the US pulled out of Afghanistan and they didn't want to do it. So the main reason they're saying they want a European army is so that they can be more warlike than even the United States, if that's even possible, right? So, you know, right now, I think the people slowly, hopefully, you do see some pretty good sized protest here and there. And I think that's a good thing. I don't know how well it's going to work. You do see some level of resistance, but you're right. This is totalitarianism. This is the N word. I would agree with you, that particular N word. We could agree on that, I think. When you see now, you're seeing there's going to be legal mandates that you have to do certain things that are medical procedures. And if you don't do that, you get locked up. I saw one proposal in one of the countries where they said first you get fined, then you get fined again, then jail time. So now you're just going to throw people in jail. What happens to a person like me, for instance, who will say, it's never going to happen. So you might as well are they just going to throw some people like me in jail for the rest of our lives? It's possible. We don't know what's coming. Are they going to take us out and machine gun us down? Wouldn't be the first time in history those kinds of things have happened. And I never thought I'd see the day that we would actually legitimately ask those kinds of questions, but I think they're legitimate questions to be asked.
Yeah, thanks. I can't sit by and not say anything. You know, I'll do what I can. All I can do is talk about it. But geez, no, it's like looking at those guys in the Ukrainian army that have a patch on their. It has the double lightning bolts, the SS patch, right there on their arms. And these are the guys that are fighting for Joe Biden.
Yep.
And Joe Biden is like, yeah, we're fighting for a free Ukraine. What, you know, and where? I mean, I've asked this before. Where is Chuck Schumer? Where are the great Jewish Democrats? Why aren't they looking at that shoulder patch? You know, why aren't they saying, no, Joe? No, those are not the right people to fight for American values. Why? Where are they? What? I mean, look at Feinstein. How many Jewish leaders do we have that are willing to turn the other way when they see that arm patch?
You know, and let's be honest about this for
Or
one
any
second.
leaders, not just
Yeah.
Jewish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. Let's be honest about this thing for 1 second. If we're really honest about it, if people really know their history, right now, the governments that run those, like Latvia and Poland and all of those Baltic states, right? Those governments trace their legacy back to the collaborators with the Nazis. All of those governments, that's who they trace their legacies back. And they despise the Russians. And it's not ideological. The Nazis despise the Russians with a racial hatred. That's how they despise the Russians. And that's where their legacy comes from. Ukraine. The bottom line is, I mean, anyone right now watching this, go on, search right now and search pictures for Ukraine NATO Nazis. The first thing will pump up the Azov, AZOV battalion. And you know what you'll see the Azov battalion? They're with SS on their shirts, SS on their patches. Literally, they got a NATO flag holding up, a Ukrainian flag in the middle, and the crooked cross flag in beside them. That's who these people are. So the U.S., when overthrew the government in 2014, put these people in power and funds them and arms them. Those uniforms that we have, that they have on, we pay for them. We arm them. We're arming not neo-Nazis. We're arming, look at that to the right. There they are with a NATO flag, a Nazi flag. And a Ukrainian flag. We're funding those people. And Biden's like, yes, we're going to provide them with more arms to protect themselves from Russia. So let me say something about this. A, it's a complete fraud. Because if you're honest with yourself about it, the Russian military is so powerful that they're just giving them, the reason they're giving the Ukrainians army, military weapons is to give money to the companies that make the weapons.
Right.
If in fact they engage with the Russian army, they will be a speed bump for the Russian army at best. They'd be turned to rubble in no time flat. There is no argument. And the United government, U.S. government ain't going in there to fight the Russians on the Russian border. That's not going to happen. So the reality is we're arming a bunch of people so we can make money off the arms. That would basically start a fight with the Russians. The Russians do not want war with them. They'd start a fight with the Russians, and they get turned they would get turned into rubble in no time flat. It's preposterous that they could defend themselves from the Russians. I don't care how much we give them. That makes no sense whatsoever, because the Russian army is, as most people know, one of the most powerful militaries on earth. Those people would be wouldn't even slow them up. They'd go through the Russian military would go through the Ukrainian military like a hot knife through butter. So that's not a reality. But we've given them over $2 billion worth of arms, which would just get blown up along with them. But that was so we could give that $2 billion to the companies, in the same way that we're giving arms to Taiwan, a country of, think about this, an island of 25 million people is really going to be able to defend itself from mainland China of 1.4 billion people, the wealthiest country now on earth, a gigantic military. That's preposterous. We just give them arms because we can buy the arms from Raytheon, etc. We can give the money to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. We can ship those arms over there. And that's just another way to take money out of the national treasury and give it to their cronies. Our politicians give it to their cronies at the in the arms industry. And they could care less if Ukraine and Taiwan gets blown up tomorrow. It's absurd. And so now, and I'll end by saying this. So now, the U.S., and I don't understand why Americans are such suckers. The U.S. is picking a fight on the Russian border and saying it's the Russians' fault. Meanwhile, we're picking a fight on the Chinese border and saying it's the Chinese fault. I don't see the Russians and Chinese in Mexico or Canada. If they're such bad guys, why are we advancing to their border, arming people on their border, and then saying, well, how dare this Russian aggression and Chinese aggression? How dare that they should move troops around on their own turf when we're advancing and arming people on their own border? And Americans are like, yeah, those Russians, oh, they're showing, what are they doing there in Russia? And the Chinese people are doing Chinese things. How evil are they? It's absurd. What kills me is, this is what I always say, after the weapons of mass destruction lie, how could you ever believe these people again? I don't get it.
It's the media. It's just they're so powerful. Everybody's watching the media all the time. It's unavoidable. And I guess it's not totally unavoidable because I'm lucky enough not to watch it all the time. Although I do watch Jeopardy with my wife sometimes. But,
I love Jeopardy too.
Yeah, but Matter of fact, we watched it right before the show. Um, and anyway, that that is all of a package of what we've been talking about tonight. In that, when Fletcher Prouty's work, The Secret Team, is all about a secret team that consists of U.S. military and secret personnel with CIA, DIA, other places, whatever they needed to put together to do the secret work that they were going to do. That would be done by this secret team, and the characteristic of it was that it had no respect for national borders. It had no interest in, filling out custom forms or trying to, diplomacy was forget about it. You got a mission, you're going to go do the mission, you're going to go home, you're going to get paid really nice, and you're done. And that type of fun and games, to use Alan Dulles's word, term for it, is what became the ugly American, and that's what has given us this horrible reputation throughout the world that we deserve for things like Abu Ghraib and that, trying to use terror tactics to intimidate, so that they don't have to bring in the 300,000 troops, to like, it's all just a simple operation to these special forces brains, like been going on since Guatemala, Vietnam, Mossadegh, Iran, everything. You know the story. That is not our government acting in the sovereign interest of the United States. That is the secret team acting in the interest of the people that run the secret team. And who runs the secret team? Generally, it is the Wall Street bankers and their lawyers, like Sullivan and Cromwell, which was Dulles's law firm. And these uh, people have always responded to the needs of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds before they would. They won't admit it, but that's who they're working for. And when they go out there and do their fun and games and take down another country, as you say, it doesn't benefit the people of the country. Doesn't benefit the people of this country. It's only a way to transfer money from the taxpayers that paid the taxes to the cronies of the insiders that are going to get paid theirs. I pay you this time, and then 2 years from now I'll be the congressman and you be the arms dealer. And you just open season on the American taxpayers, ripping us off right and left, while they've got the right spokespeople that say the right things. Nancy Pelosi seems to be effective. Chuck Schumer, and on the other side, you've got, Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell. And, there's a flavor for everybody of spokesperson for the deep state. That's what I think they all are. They're just, like you say, they're interchangeable. Um, like George Webb pointed out at the January 6th thing, where one of the guys said to another one, "Oh, no, we're not Antifa today. We're Proud Boys today." Which one are you today? Which hat do you wear? Oh, I got the orange hat today. Oh, I must be with the Proud Boys today. That kind of thing. Interchangeable puppets that are used to put on a show for the American people, and we've got to somehow break that fourth wall. Hello, audience. We're real. This is not just a play. This is really happening. You guys have a part. Stand up. Get up, stand up, do something.
Yeah, and the American foreign policy, it's all about the oligarchs. Let me give you another example. You mentioned Ted Cruz, and what's Ted Cruz pushing? The against the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And I'll tell you, let me get to exactly why that's about the oligarchs. So a few years back, Angela Merkel approached Putin and said, "We'd like to build another pipeline." Remember, they're already got 2 or 3 pipelines they're getting from Russia, right? They're getting gas, right? Turk Stream and Nord Stream 1. That's why this is Nord Stream 2. Let's build this new pipeline. Putin reluctantly says yes. They build at the time he didn't want to, he goes along with it. So they build this pipeline, $11.5 billion pipeline from Russia to run gas, right? Okay. And the Russians set it up to also run, they set it up so that if eventually people go to green energy, they can push hydrogen or something to it. But at any rate, so they set this thing up with the latest technology. So now Ted Cruz is like, this has to be stopped. Why? If you get gas from the Russians, that's evil, and the Russians will try to use it to control you. Well, that's now that they've told everybody in America that the Russians are, they give us our enemies. The CIA says everybody knows. If you want to know who your enemy is, check this the website. Who the latest enemy is? It's going to be Maduro or Assad or China or Russia. You've got a nice little list of enemies. Just go to the CIA and you can get your official list. But so it's, don't buy gas from the Russians because they'll manipulate you. But wait a minute, they're already buying gas from the Russians. In fact, they were buying gas from the Soviet Union during the 1960s, when the Soviet Union and when both sides had thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other. Western Europe and Northern Europe was buying gas from the Russians then, and they didn't stop buying it. So what makes you think that somehow now all of a sudden they're going to stop? It's not going to work out. And they already got 2 or 3 pipelines pumping gas. So pumping one more is going to be a problem? No, but what that's really about, what Ted Cruz wants to do, he wants Europe to stop buying the cheap gas from Russia, because needless to say, it's a lot cheaper if you're just pumping it through a pipeline. You build that infrastructure once and keep piping it, right? Pumping it. He wants them to buy LNG, liquefied natural gas, from his Texas oligarchs. So what appears on the surface to be anti-Russian, oh, you can't buy this, it's the Russians. Think about it. If you don't buy it from the Russians, you got to buy it from somewhere, don't you? You buy it from Ted Cruz's oligarchs. A lot of times when you look at, think about this right now. Sanctions against Iran, the 4th largest oil reserves in the world, to keep their, so they sell to China, but they're not on the open market like everybody else. So their oil is sanctioned. Sanctions against Venezuela. Venezuela's got more oil than anybody in the world. What happens what happens? We're talking about, we've got to stop Maduro because he's evil, and the Iranians, they're evil. But in reality, what happens if you lift all the sanctions and Iran and Venezuela's oil goes on the market tomorrow? What happens to the price of oil? It falls, doesn't it? So are these sanctions really about the evil Maduro or the evil Iranians? In reality, it comes down to enriching the oligarchs, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, etc. They will lose money. The price will, and might I add, and when the U.S. says to Saudi Arabia or whatever country, we're going to squeeze you if you don't do what we want with the oil price. Well, Iran and Venezuela ain't listening to them. So the U.S. loses some ability to control the oil market, right? So while Americans are just get fed the Maduro's evil, Iran is evil crap, and they buy into that stuff, it comes back to money and oligarchs every single time.
You're an important voice, Garland. I want you everywhere. I want all these PFW people to listen to you. My God, I listen to PFW. I used to more than I do now, but good-hearted, wonderful people of all kinds of cultures, and just it's just a stimulating show. They've got all kinds of commentators and everything, but they don't have very many people that are willing to look and tell it like it is, instead of following the narrative. And so much of what I hear on the air is basically what you might call virtue signaling. Virtue signaling. That's the word I was calling for. It's like saying I'm mad at those guys because everybody else is mad at those guys. So I'm mad at those guys, and those guys, they're hypocrites, and they pass memes around. So, well, but it's all just saying I'm with this team. You might as well have a jersey that says blue. I'm with blue. I'm the blue team, and then everybody would know who you are. But where's the analysis? Where's the reason? Where's the looking behind the so-called experts? Well, it's happening. I mean, it is happening. You're doing it. We're trying to do it here. Thank you so much for your contribution, not only to us, but to everybody. Because, like I say, your voice is very, very important, Garland. And I really do appreciate you being with us tonight.
Well, thank you. Because I always talk about the system. People, like you're saying, people get caught up on which team I'm on, or which group I'm with, or who's the good guy or the bad guy, who's this week's hero or this week's villain. And I'm like, talk about the systemic problems. I'm watching football with a friend of mine. You know, I'm a big fan of Washington. I like the Washington teams, and I like, you know, the Wizards, the Caps, stuff like that. You know, like a lot of my friends do. I have a lot of friends, you know, that like Capital. You know how it is. You're around this area.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the football, and on the back of the helmets, we look, and one guy's got end racism. You know how they like all have the words or something on their stuff now? End racism, do
Yeah.
this, treat people not whatever, right? And this
Yeah.
guy says, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "You know, 2 words you'll never see on the back of one of those helmets." They said, "What? In war." And he looks at me and he laughed. Why is that? What happens before the game? They're flying B-1B bombers over, and they're the military. Why? They're indoctrinating us to make it seem patriotic for the oligarchs to take money that should go into our roads and our airports and our ports, and why in the world we have Medicare and our seniors are not covered with ear, hearing, vision, and dental, right? We don't have money for hearing and vision and dental for seniors, people 65 and over who need those. That's not covered in Medicare, but we are flying B-1B bombers over and all of these. They're playing the Star Spangled Banner and all of these things that looks good on paper. But when you think about the money we're wasting on that crap, we're the biggest country in the world. Nobody's attacking us. We're the ones doing all the attacking. Our military people have to understand something. All that stuff is to make you feel good and feel like the right thing is happening when they're taking the money that you earned, you deserve, and they're funneling it into the hands of their buddies one way or the other. And then you're going to be like, hooray, yay, look at those B-1 bombers. Those are our planes. They're not your planes. They are simply just like Afghanistan. All that stuff is money laundering. That's all it is. Afghanistan was 20 years of money laundering. They told us, we can't leave Afghanistan. Everything will fall apart. We left Afghanistan. Is anything falling apart? No. Nothing. It's Afghanistan. It's what it was before we left. It's been there for thousands of years. They're going to wander around the mountains and do what they do in Afghanistan. Fine. It's their world. 20 years we were there. And all we did was transferred a couple of $1 trillion out of the hands of the national treasury and into the hands of the oligarchs, every which kind of oligarch. And now they're looking, they got to be on the border of Russia and China. Let me add one more thing. I mean, people are like, I know so many people, I feel sorry for them, who are like, well, I think that these COVID measures, I think they're trying to do the right thing. And I'm like, wait a minute. Your government right now is picking a fight with nuclear powers on their border. They are risking the lives of every man, woman, and children. They are playing Russian roulette with nuclear weapons. And you think that their health policies are to keep you safe? They're risking the life of you and everybody you know with nuclear annihilation. And you really believe that they're, at the same time they're doing that, they're also coming up with these health measures to keep you safe? I mean, that's like somebody playing Russian roulette. Click, click, click. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I got to drink a healthy smoothie. Got to keep my cholesterol low. Drink the healthy smoothie and start clicking with Russian roulette again. That's what they're doing. It's absurd for anybody to believe that our government is doing anything in any way, shape, or form that is going to benefit the average system. I've come to, as a citizen, I've come to the conclusion they're doing nothing to benefit us. They are extracting from us. That's what our government does. It is a vacuum cleaner. It extracts resources. It extracts labor. It extracts money from us. That's our job. We are fuel for the machine. And that may sound, pessimistic, but I really believe that's where we are now. And I think the evidence is pretty strong.
Eustace Mullins, The World Order, Our Secret Rulers, a study in the hegemony of parasitism. Parasitism.
Perfect.
That's what it is. They're parasites. And we've got to wake up to it. Thank you so much, Garland. I appreciate your being with me tonight, and I look forward to the next time. Excellent analysis. Folks, share this show with folks. Let everybody know what we're doing here with Garland on when we're lucky enough to have him here. I hope we'll get you back here in a couple of weeks, Garland. Thanks for being with me tonight.
Thank you. I don't do a lot of stuff anymore, but when I do, you guys are always at the top of my list. I certainly appreciate the opportunity you've given me to be on your show, and I enjoy what you're doing.
All right, superb. Everybody have a good evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 11 with Sean Ross from France. Good night, Garland. Good night, everybody.
Good night.